I've been ghosted. It's a narcissist. Yes? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Ghosting. Suddenly cutting off all communication without explanation. It has become one of the most common, and for some painful ways, that romantic, platonic, and even professional relationships end. Someone you've been texting daily, maybe dating for months, or collaborating with at work simply vanishes. There's no breakup text, no "I'm not feeling it", no closure, just radio silence. By 2024, surveys consistently show that 20 to 40% of people under 35 have both ghosted someone and been ghosted, with the numbers climbing higher, unsurprisingly, on dating apps. Narcissists are well known for being individuals that ghost. I have a separate video about ghosting which I'd encourage you to watch. And often people will say to me, "HG, I've been ghosted. That must mean that they are a narcissist." Well, as I have explained on many occasions, one act alone is insufficient to make a determination. You simply cannot say that somebody is a narcissist based on one act. Tempting as it might be, you can't. You need to look at their behavior over a sustained period of time, examining different pieces of evidence to see if the appropriate criteria are met. Yes, narcissists do ghost. And this is linked to the fact that the narcissist operates with a sense of entitlement, that narcissists treat people as objects. You are there to be used for the purposes of the narcissist aims, and if you are of no use, you can be cast to one side. And the narcissism isn't interested in the niceties of explaining why that has happened. You're just removed because that's the most effective and efficient thing to do. The narcissist has no sense of obligation or accountability towards you. You are, after all, an object. Would you explain to your television set why you're switching it off at the end of the evening? No, you wouldn't. And it's similar with the mindset for the narcissist. The superiority of the narcissist, at least in their own mind, means, combined with the fact that you're viewed as an appliance, as an object, no explanation is required. You are there to be utilized for the aims of the narcissist, the prime aims, and thereafter, that means that the narcissist can just dispense with you, without explanation, without consideration, and you find yourself being ghosted. It's also the case that it often comes in quite dramatic circumstances, whereby there's a period of intense interaction, and then the narcissist is focused on someone elsewhere and doesn't feel the need to maintain any form of contact with you. Thus, the comparison between intense activity with the narcissist and a howling wilderness is particularly stark. So it's certainly the case that narcissists do indeed ghost and are amongst the most prevalent individuals of doing so. But it is important to understand that having been ghosted is merely a narcissistic indicator, but there can be other reasons. And it's worth exploring what some of those other reasons are. First of all, technology has removed the friction from disappearing. Before smartphones and dating apps, ending contact actually required some effort. You had to ignore phone calls on a landline, which could be difficult for you, for instance, if somebody else answered on your behalf. You'd have to avoid someone at mutual hangouts, or you'd be forced to deliver an in-person "it's not you, it's me" speech. Social circles overlapped, reputations mattered, and in effect, ghosting was logistically hard to do. But apps like Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, and even LinkedIn have changed the rules. Most matches are strangers you'll never run into in real life. Blocking or unmatching takes one tap. Your disappearance is invisible to their daily world. The psychological cost of vanishing is near zero, while the emotional cost of an honest conversation, even a short one, then feels disproportionately high. Technology has turned ghosting from rude exception into low-effort default. There's also the avoidance of conflict, that feels like self-preservation. Some people who ghost are actually extreme conflict avoiders. The idea of telling someone, "I'm not attracted to you anymore," or "I got back with my ex," or "your repeated texting is overwhelming," triggers intense anxiety, guilt, or fear of retaliation. Studies on rejection sensitivity show that some people experience anticipated confrontation as physical threat level stress. Thus, ghosting feels like the path of least resistance. No argument, no tears, no risk of being called a bad person. For certain people who have issues in relation to abandonment, leaving narcissists to one side, delivering bad news can unconsciously feel like inflicting the same pain they once received. Silence, in their mind, is kinder than explicit rejection, even though, of course, the ghosted party would disagree. There's also the paradox of choice and option overload. Modern dating presents an illusion of infinite options. When one match starts demanding more time or emotional investment, another 20 are a swipe away. This is choice overload paralysis. Committing to an uncomfortable conversation feels irrational when you believe, often wrongly, that someone better is waiting elsewhere. This isn't limited to romance. Job candidates ghost employers after receiving offers because another company might offer $5,000 more. Friends ghost plans because a better, cooler invitation appeared. The same apps that make connection easy also then make every relationship feel replaceable. Emotional immaturity and poor communication skills. A significant percentage of frequent ghosters simply never learned how to end things respectfully. They may be young, or they may be older adults who spent formative dating years in small towns or long-term relationships, and suddenly find themselves single in the app era. They mimic what they see. Everyone else disappears, so disappearing must be normal, a herd mentality. Some treat texting like a video game. When it stops being fun, they close the app. They don't conceptualize the person on the other side as having real feelings, especially if they've never met, or only met once or twice. Power, punishment, and passive-aggressive control. Not all ghosting is cowardly. Some might actually be calculated cruelty. The ghoster knows the uncertainty torments the ghosted party more than a clean rejection would. In situations involving perceived slights, someone didn't text back fast enough, cancelled plans, or showed interest in another person, ghosting becomes retaliation disguised as self-protection. Now, you're most likely going to see that kind of behavior with a narcissist, but it can also take place with people who are strong in narcissistic traits but aren't narcissists themselves. It might also relate to issues with mental health, depression, anxiety, burnout, family crises. Sometimes people just disappear because they're barely holding themselves together. Replying to a casual, "Hey, how's your week?" feels impossible to them when they can't get out of bed. In these cases, the ghosting isn't about the other person, it's a symptom of drowning. Cultural normalization. By 2025, ghosting has been memed, debated, and ultimately accepted as just how dating works now. TikTok sounds jokes about if he ghosts you, haunt him back by thriving. Articles titled "How to Ghost Someone Nicely" exist unironically. When a behaviour is both ubiquitous and constantly rationalised, it's self-care, you don't owe strangers anything, then a social penalty associated with ghosting evaporates. People who would never ghost a co-worker feel perfectly justified ghosting someone they've been on 3 dates with. Extending this principle, the you don't owe anyone anything philosophy becomes taken too far. A genuine boundary, "I don't owe every match a response," has morphed into an absolutist mantra that justifies treating people who have invested real time and emotion as disposable. After 10 dates, sleepovers, meeting friends and saying "I really like you," most people reasonably expect a 30-second courtesy text, but the "I don't owe you anything" crowd insist any expectation of basic decency is entitlement. Fear of being the bad guy. Many people that ghost convince themselves that the other person will hate them if they tell the truth. Therefore, they think that disappearing is actually the least hurtful route. Common internal rationalizations are, well, they'll get over it faster if I just fade out. Or, if I say I'm not interested, they'll argue with me or try to change my mind. Or, well, they probably don't even care that much. In fact, many of these views are not actually true, but they will soothe the ghoster's conscience in the moment. In some instances, stalking, harassment, or genuine danger, the ghosting plus blocking is actually legitimate self-protection. When someone has repeatedly ignored boundaries, continuing communication, even to say, please leave me alone, can escalate risk. And those of you will know that I regularly explain to you that when you establish that you are dealing with a narcissist, you just go total no contact. You don't tell the narcissist that you are ending the relationship. You do not tell them that you don't want to hear from them. You just ensure that you impose that total no contact regime. And of course, that would appear as ghosting to that other individual. Accordingly, there are lots of reasons why an individual might ghost somebody, and they're not because they're a narcissist. There are other factors. Of course, certain narcissists will justify their ghosting along the lines of some of the things that I have mentioned there. But it's important to understand that whilst ghosting is prevalent amongst narcissists, it's no more than a narcissistic indicator, and that it can happen for other reasons. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.